Hello, my name is Tiffany Jackson, and this is my week 4 video blog for Counseling 500 at Liberty University on my observations of the counseling session presentations. The first thing I noticed with the presentations were the titles of the videos, the listening invitational, reflecting the feelings and reflecting meaning. I felt like they really hit the core of what should be happening in the middle of a counseling session. The things that I noticed during the sessions were how the counselors really listen to the clients. I feel like there is a difference that we have learned about hearing and listening, and both of the counselors in these presentations show that they were really listening to the clients. An example of this was when the counselor would repeat back to the client almost exactly what they said, but then maybe opened a fold to that box that they were trying to dig into to figure out the root of why the client was there. Another thing that popped out to me was how both of the counselors were investigating in the sessions. They were trying to dig deeper, asking questions that the clients would have to answer with more than a yes or a no. They would have to explain more to them. They would listen to what the clients were saying and then connect it to another thought. For example, by saying, okay, you feel this way on this, but what about this? This was very much obvious in the video for reflecting feelings. Mark, the counselor, while talking to the client, she was there just to talk about her aggravations of taking care of everyone. The counselor was able to help her dig deep to figure out that she was also feeling anger towards herself, resentment towards her brother, anger towards her parents and the whole family as a whole because of this. And this came out because the counselor helped the client dig. That's another thing that pointed out to me is in these presentations, even though it was the professional of the counselor and the client, they both worked as teams. The counselor really gave the client a lot of power in that session in order to help them evolve into what was really the root that brought them to counseling. Another example of this was in the video for invitational. The counselor in this video was talking to the client who had experienced trauma from a car accident. He was saying that he was noticing differences in himself, and the counselor really wanted to see what was going on with the physical effects of this trauma. Now, anxiety does have physical effects, but I feel like it's really important to see those effects to learn the extreme levels of what is happening in that client's life because of this situation. And when the counselor was talking to the client ended up feeling the anxiety within him. He had his hands buried, and it was really evident that the client wasn't just, you know, there telling his story, but he was a part of the solution. He gave the counselor more information just by his just by his physical appearance to the trauma than his verbal. Another thing that I noticed were the tones of the counselor and how they physically appeared. In one of the videos, the invitational presentation, the counselor put a slight hand on the client's arm. Another presentation, Mark, while talking to his clients, leaned in. He had a stern face. He looked really intrigued as to what was being said. He was very open in his stance. He would say, okay, I understand, throughout the presentation. Just to make sure that it was known, he was really hearing it, and not just the words, but the way he looked, the way that he was into the conversation, physically into the conversation, leaning in towards the client. These presentations that we watched were very similar to my own thoughts of how a counseling session would be. They were really investigating, really engaged in the counseling. I would have liked to see more of sessions after that to see how these clients' stories unfolded. But just these 4 videos on the first initial presentation was very enlightening. I especially enjoyed the reflecting meaning presentation when Mark went ahead and told the client, I don't know about your culture. I don't know everything about your culture. Can you inform me? This was a really key note because the counselor was giving the client that note of saying you are the expert in your life. You know everything about yourself. The counselor is just a visitor in the client's life, and they leveled the playing field. It wasn't just one is a professional and one is just seeking help, but they're both professionals in their own right. And I really enjoyed seeing that. Another thing that I really enjoyed seeing was how, in the reflecting feelings, how Mark, the counselor, really dug deep into the client's emotions and feelings on the subject. I don't think she actually understood the deepness of her feelings and resentment and anger towards multiple people in the situation, but also towards herself. And because the counselor was able to help the client unfold the boxes to figure out what was inside and to go deeper and deeper into what brought her into counseling, the more you could see on her face, a revelation of, oh, okay, there was more to this. It's not just this one thing. I really connected to these presentations and I enjoyed watching them. I look forward to seeing all of y'all's videos for this week too. I hope you have a great day.